Hello and welcome to the Big Three podcast with Adarsh and Adam. In this podcast, me and Adam take you through all things cricket. In today's episode, we are going to discuss match fixing in cricket. At- It is a big thing for sure. So, starting off, I'll just preface from where match fixing started in cricket. Well, I was looking up the origins of the game, and it was a game which was created by the aristocracy of England to bet. It was made a professional sport only so that you could bet on it. So some really good foundation right from the start, doesn't it have?
Started we mean to go on, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's funny that games always morph and take off a life of their own, and they evolve and they kind of mutate. But it seems to have gone back to where it was right at the beginning now, doesn't it? Um, it's a funny one because you, you can see sometimes now by the way people talk about the franchise leagues and things like that, where not just match fixing, but cricket seems to have gone back to more of a kind of entertainment, um,
Yeah.
uh, almost like WWE, whereas before, certainly when I was younger, and even when you were a bit younger,
Yeah.
it really did it was really taking more as a sport that people really wanted to win or lose rather than here today, gone tomorrow kind of millions of franchise leagues or uh, things like that. And now obviously the betting, which is much worse, and things
Yeah.
like match fixing and spot fixing.
Yeah, and you're correct there. I think that IPL itself brands it as an entertainment product rather
Mm.
than a sport. So it's literally right there in how it describes itself. Coming
And
on to
certainly
the
the 100. I mean, wow, that's like the real extreme.
Yeah, no, I think the 100 is like, I know you have some reservations with the 100, but
Mm,
the IPL,
mm,
if you go around the background of
mm,
how it was originally conceived and how it's
mm,
run right now, it's run more
mm,
like an entertainment product, and it's
mm,
run on channels which show entertainment. So there is a
mm,
channel called Star here. They
mm,
show what are they called? Soap operas. They show soap
mm,
operas from 7:30, and after that you have the IPL. So it's more
yeah.
of entertainment. Anyways, coming on to the betting market of Southeast
Mm,
Asia. So I think this is the biggest problem is that most Southeast Asian countries, or well, all Southeast Asian countries have
mm,
betting banned, and it is
mm,
not legal and it is not regulated. Yet the
mm.
betting market in India is around $200 billion
Wow.
illegally, only in India.
Yeah.
Each IPL game goes for around $2 billion in
Yeah.
unregulated money in the betting market. Can you imagine
Wow.
if one person has even a slight bit of knowledge of what's going to happen, they can
Mm,
make a fortune out of that. And we
definitely.
cannot be naive here to the fact that there are a lot of takers and there are a lot of givers. So people are
Mm,
not very innocent in this mess. And if
yeah.
there is money to be made, there are people to take it. So I don't think that there is definitely something happening there.
Yeah. But and also, I mean, this isn't just speculation. I mean, even the ECB have come out and said they don't want their players playing in leagues that have got match fixing in or spot fixing. Don't know if you saw that recently.
Yeah, yeah, they have, and but I don't think they can exert any power on it.
No.
I'll come on to that later. I think that's a big topic in and of itself.
Mm,
I think match fixing really like jumped up to like a real big high in the
mm,
90s where
yeah.
everyone was fixing. It was more of a
Mm.
fixing game than a cricket match. Like every single game you see, you'll have some elements of fixing. Wasim Akram, Shane Warne, Mark Waugh, Mohammad Azharuddin, everyone is fixing at that point. And I don't know, I
Yeah.
think that was the era which you watched cricket,
Yeah.
was your prime era of watching cricket. And
Yeah.
I don't know how it feels like about
Yeah. I
that.
mean, that's it. I mean, there was a distinction in England drawn. You're using match fixing as a broad term. So, for instance, with someone like Hansi Cronje or Malik, um, there's millions of others, but they were done for actually match fixing. Whereas I think we were with Warren, Mark Waugh, and the accusations against was it Macron? I don't know. That might go into both with those accusations in the Kayam report. But with Warren and Waugh. it was seen as giving being paid to give information about a pitch, wasn't it?
Oh, come on.
It
I'll tell you that that is the biggest load of bullshit I've heard in my life because no bookie is going
that's
to
what they
ask.
said.
No, a bookie can literally go into the ground and see what the pitch is doing. Why would they even ask one about that? That's just a cover-up thing by the CA, and
Well,
it's public.
Imran Khan said that as well. I remember seeing a documentary, an Australian documentary about it, and
Yeah,
Imran Khan said, basically, are you sure that that's all they told them? Because he said what you said, but they maintain, just putting my lawyer's hat on, that they
yeah.
maintain that they just did it. They purely just gave information about the pitch,
Nope.
and that was the, that was the reason. Um, I don't want Mark Waugh knocking on your door at night time saying, what are you saying about me?" Um,
There is a video. There's a very famous video. You can
mm,
go to the BBL and
mm,
search Ricky Ponting
mm,
talking about Warren and Voss. So he's
mm,
literally saying he sang a song about how they were both running after the bookies' money, and he said
mm,
that they ran after the bookies' money for 5 years. And this is
mm,
the most fascinating bit in it for me because Hansi Cronje was only
mm,
convicted for fixing around 2 or 3 games. But
mm,
if you look at his bank accounts, he has around 120 bank accounts only in the
mm.
Cayman Islands, each containing at least $70,000 from public knowledge. So he's,
This is
yeah,
the really thing that this is the thing that disappoints me the most is that the ICC didn't want to scratch the surface. So one of the big tournaments where this happened was the 99 Cricket World Cup, one I remember really well.
yeah,
And there was some dodgy stuff going on in that World Cup. Now, bearing in mind that there was a Qaim report into the Pakistani players after that, there was the King's Commission into the South African players. Yet the ICC didn't go any further, and also there was a banning of Mohammed Azharuddin from India. I think maybe it was Mongia as well.
yeah.
Um, and but the ICC just almost just took those guys at their words that we just did these few matches. So there was a match where Pakistan had already got through, and they lost to Bangladesh when they weren't even a test nation. And I think a lot of people were suspicious about that. Now I don't know if the ICC pushed any further to inquire about that. There was also a group game where Herschel Gibbs caught Steve Waugh and then dropped him, but because he was celebrating catching
Yeah,
it. You
yeah,
know what I
that's
mean?
very famous. That's very famous.
But Herschel Gibbs later on admitted taking money for to get a low score in a match in the King's Commission, and the ICC never said, "Oh, hang on a minute, let's investigate this whole World Cup." There was also an umpire in that tour, a number of umpires that were under suspicion. Then there was a group game between England and India where they mysteriously went off before 20 overs, before 25 overs, and then finished the game the next day. And it was all sorts of funny things like that where you're going, oh, hang on a minute. And there was accusations that that was deliberate, for the bookmakers. So that tournament was really rotten. Oh,
Yeah,
there's another one where South Africa, again, they'd already qualified and they lost to Zimbabwe. And this was like the top South African side with Donald Pollock, etc.
yeah,
and Kirsten. And they lost to this Zimbabwe side. And this is and they were captained by Cronje, who'd admitted to match fixing, spot fixing, a number of things. He was one of the honest ones, at least at the end, after the Indian police caught him.
honest.
But yeah, well, because some of the people have said they didn't do it, or that it was just, they've kind of, at least well, I suppose he was more honest than some of them, but only
Yeah,
because he was caught. But
yeah,
you know what I mean? That the ICC never thought, well, let's go a bit further. There was a game in the 90s Steve Waugh was talking about where he said he felt Pakistan weren't trying. He said, I could tell something was up there. And I think it was a game in the 90s, and Steve Waugh took 3 wickets for 13 runs off 10 overs, something like that.
yeah,
And he
yeah.
said
I
that was a
know
bit
that.
odd. Yeah, and he's like, oh, that's a bit odd. But the ICC never went, oh, we've got to crack down on this and really
Yeah,
kind of investigate, ban everyone for life. If that happened in football or rugby, someone who'd taken money to fix a game, they'd be banned forever. That's it. There'd be literally no tolerance of it.
yeah,
Um, but in cricket, it's almost like at that time, the ICC wanted to sweep it under the carpet because they didn't want to devalue the sport. They thought it would be a bad image for the sport. Um,
yeah.
but it was really rife, and you wonder how many of those games we saw were fixed, and definitely things like spot fixing, and was a game in Pakistan, Zimbabwe. I remember reading about where a bowler who claims he's innocent, so I don't want to impugn him, but he bowled like 40 wides, and this is like one of the best bowlers ever, and he bowled 40 wides against
Who?
Zimbabwe in a Test match.
Wasim
Um,
Akram.
yeah, yeah. So but
Okay.
he was
Yeah,
just
he
saying
fixed
that
that game. He was fixing that game
I
always.
don't, I don't- well, he said he didn't he? It's a
Yeah,
the crime report seemed to suggest it, didn't it?
yeah.
But he didn't he say he maintained he was innocent, didn't he?
Yeah. So, I'll say 2 points here. You
Yeah.
said why the ICC does not take action. Well, I'm
Mm.
going to ask you, what do you expect of Greg Barclay to do against the second biggest mafia in the world, which runs throughout all countries and has a net
Yeah.
worth of around near about where the half of the USA. So I don't expect Greg Barclay going out with Jay Shah, not Jay Shah, but Greg Barclay and Joe Fallot is going to change that. And like you mentioned, there was a lot of match fixing, and I can like confidently
Mm.
say that 80
Mm.
to 70% of games in the 90s were completely fixed, not even half fixed.
Mm.
Uh,
There was yeah.
yeah,
And sometimes by the umpires. There was an umpire Headingley 98 England South Africa
yeah,
gave some of the strangest LBW decisions to both sides. So he wasn't working for one side or the other. He must have just had a bet about the number of, or involved in a bet about the number of LBWs in the match. Because there were
yeah,
some really peculiar ones. In those days, if you just got outside the line, you could never, they never gave you out LBW. The benefit that there was no
yeah,
DRS
yeah,
or Hawkeye, whatever. And these were like really peculiar ones all throughout the match. And then it
yeah,
turned out, and Andy Flintoff was talking about it, it turned out that this guy had been done for some kind of corruption.
yeah.
So
Steve
it was
Buckner
umpires
says
doing
hello.
it. Steve Buckner wasn't found guilty though, was he? This was another guy. I can't remember his
Yeah,
name.
yeah, I'm just being.
Yeah,
uh,
Steve. We don't want
yeah.
to impugn poor Steve. Steve's going to be knocking at your door as well now.
Yeah, a lot of people are going to be knocking at my door. Yeah. Okay, so coming on to satellite leagues,
Mm,
because
mm,
like there's a million different leagues, and I there was a point where I used to watch all of them, and all of them, by all of them I mean there did
mm,
not used to be this many leagues in 2018, 2019
mm,
till the time I used to follow everything. But right now you have leagues popping up everywhere.
mm.
There's a league in Honolulu, and there's a league in
Yeah,
The
Cayman
Cayman
Islands. Yeah.
Islands. Like, and the fact is that none of these leagues make any sort of money. They make
Mm,
zero organic money. Most of
mm,
these leagues are either backed by match fixing. Obviously, they're run solely for the purpose of
mm,
match fixing, like the
mm,
original games, like how cricket was created for betting.
mm,
Second, they are, or maybe money laundering. It's either match
mm.
fixing or money laundering. And
Yeah.
and and I was hearing, like I was seeing a report where a very rich owner, he was disclosing to some, I think the Telegraph, he was
Mm,
disclosing on anonymity that we just call everyone, all of our business
mm,
friends, that come here,
mm,
invest your money, we can invest our black money and get back clean money out of this. So it's literally a vehicle for rich people to earn some side cash. And
mm,
I just feel that the only solution for all of this,
mm,
well, there are two solutions.
mm.
You have to legalize betting and regulate it
Definitely.
in
Yeah.
India.
Yeah.
But we'll come on to why that won't happen. And
Mm.
obviously, you need to have a ICC which has a spine of itself.
Yeah. Good luck with that one. I think the first one is more likely.
Yeah, I don't think that is, but I'll come on to that later.
But
Uh,
if you saw I know you're talking about the
yeah,
satellite leagues, but I can't remember the program I saw. It was an Australian one, maybe 99, 2000. It's
yeah,
presented by a woman. I can't remember her name.
yeah,
She she was obviously someone who wasn't a cricket fan, but
yeah,
confronted with all this evidence, she was so astounded. And some of the cricketers claiming to be innocent, she just couldn't believe it because she had all this evidence in front of her. And
yeah,
it was so obvious to her, even as not a cricket woman, that there was dodgy things going on. Yet the ICC just take these players' words. And if
yeah,
you're talking about Ward taking money, he says for giving a pitch report for a number of years, that was suppressed by the ACB at the time. Um, and you talk about Wasim Akram bowling all those wides, which he said was just like a coincidence. These guys still work on TV.
yeah.
So how come? I remember Michael Vaughan being really critical of the Pakistani spot fixes in 2010.
10.
Asif, Amir, and Salim Butt.
Salman Butt.
Salman Butt, sorry.
Yeah,
And he was really critical of them and said, yeah, they deserve prison, blah blah blah.
yeah.
What what did that Salman Butt do that was so different to what Mark Waugh did? I don't understand.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
he's commentating with Mark Waugh
Yeah.
and asking him his opinion. And I don't really understand why. And in this program,
Like
Steve,
asking
yeah,
David Warner on ball tampering.
yeah, exactly, yeah, yeah, it's true. So I don't really understand why. Does Michael Vaughan just does he not know about this or does he? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So my thing is that they're all involved, and there was a very like I'll come on to a lot of things later, but
Mm,
if there was an interview which Virat Kohli gave, and this is the only
yeah,
time he spoke of match fixing in his life.
yeah,
So he was asked, "What do you think about match fixing?" He said,
yeah,
"We all know that the match fixing happens everywhere,
yeah.
but we can't stop it. At the he said that at the end of the day, it's only the player's faith which you can trust because the
Mm,
game has become so rotten with this that no one
mm,
can solve it. Even he does not even trust people in his own team, and he said that in an interview. So you can imagine,
wow.
yeah.
Yeah. That's really telling, isn't it? You wouldn't get that in any other sport, really.
Nope. But I think there's a bit of fixing in football as well because you see reports in the Nigerian leagues and all that there is fixing, but not to the level where
Mm,
it is in cricket.
no.
Cricket is rife with fixing. Now
Yeah.
coming on to
Mm,
there's a very good documentary which I'll recommend to
mm,
everyone who wants to
mm,
learn everything about fixing. Watch
mm,
the Al Jazeera match fixers in cricket documentary as you
mm,
base level get into match fixing in cricket. Two parts. Watch it.
mm.
How do you like it?
That was excellent. You recommended it to me because I remember reading at the time.
Yeah.
But because I was a bit naive,
Yeah.
I just someone came out, I think one of the England or Australian players, and said, "Is this complete rubbish?"
Yeah.
I said, "Oh, they've said that." And I was like the ICC there, really, and just believed it was rubbish. But when you see the program, the
Yeah.
evidence is so compelling. I
Yeah.
mean, if this was a court case, a
Yeah.
jury would convict on that evidence. It was quite clear because the bookie was saying exactly what was going to happen, and then
Yeah.
got these experts to look at the game,
Yeah.
and everything transpired as the bookie said. And
Yeah.
I think this wasn't match fixing per se. It was like spot fixing, wasn't it? So
Yeah. I'm
someone
using
would
the
get, yeah,
umbrella term of match fixing for
mm,
everything. Yeah.
yeah. But I think this was a case of someone he played out like a maiden, or only got one off the last over before tea.
Yeah.
And that's what the bookie suggested. Or there's like a accumulation of runs in 10 overs, things like that that are
Yeah.
very hard to
Sessions.
kind of, yeah,
Sessions.
sessions. So it's not just, you know,
Manda.
the
There was a term I think you'll remember. Manda. It meant that
yeah.
you'll give away less than 2 runs and over or 2 runs and
That's
over.
right. I remember that
Yeah.
because I think people got confused because some of the stuff that Cronje was doing
Yeah.
was so outlandish. Like, um, I don't know, setting England like 240 to win in that test, just because he he was so
Yeah.
desperate to make a profit, and
Yeah.
it was immediately really obvious what was happening.
Yeah.
Whereas this is a bit more kind of sophisticated. How do you police, 3 runs off the 53rd over or something like that? There's no way of telling.
Yeah.
And especially
Exactly.
before tea, you can say, "Oh, look, I don't want to play any risky shots before tea because
Yeah. Yeah.
it's tea coming up, you know." And whereas you'd normally be saying, "Well, look, this bowler's bowling rubbish. Can't you just smash him around?" Oh no, it's
Yeah.
just tea, you know. And it's very easy to manipulate.
Yeah, and Lou Vincent was saying the same thing. I think he was convicted of
Yeah,
fixing. So he said
yeah,
the best fix you can do without getting caught is dead bat the ball for 20 overs. And no one will bat an eye
yeah,
because that happens in
yeah,
cricket all the time.
yeah,
Act like you're struggling and you can't get the ball off the square.
yeah.
And you cannot like in test cricket it goes overlooked because no one really cares if you have a dry face for a while.
No.
But people actually like if you watch the game, someone is scoring at a quick rate and suddenly
Mm,
you'll see they'll stop
mm,
I wonder at those times why is this guy stopping? Like I've seen Jadeja bat a couple of times and he
mm,
comes in India are around 600 for one.
mm.
He comes in and he's dead batting the ball for 6 overs and I'm like why? What's the point of doing that?
Yeah.
And at those moments you can do nothing but just succumb to the fact that it's probably fixing. Coming on to
We're not
like
suggesting Jadeja's fixing though, are we? That's just like an
might
example.
be, might be. The Chennai Super Kings is a very infamous franchise, and like I was coming on to MS Dhoni as well. Like I know this is going to hurt a lot of people's sentiments,
Mm,
but
mm,
from whatever I have spent a lot of time
mm,
around 1 to 2 3 years, I have spent decoding what's happened with fixing. But
mm,
MS Dhoni was 100% involved in widespread fixing, and he was one of the main perpetrators in the Chennai Super Kings franchise,
yeah,
along with Suresh Raina and
yeah,
probably Jadeja. I don't know of, but maybe
yeah.
he might be involved.
But re Dhoni and Reina, has there
Yeah.
ever been charges brought against them?
Yup, you can look at the Mudgal report. There was a report
Yeah.
called the Mudgal report, and it had there was a 2 year inquiry, and
Okay.
a leading Delhi officer, Delhi police officer. They said that
Yeah.
we had someone keeping their knives under our throats that don't investigate this guy or else we're going to kill you. That was the kind of level of
And was
intim.
this for spot fixing or
Yeah, I
fix?
think the 2013 IPL spot fixing
Yeah.
scandal where Srishant was banned. I
Yeah.
think you
Yeah.
remember
I
that.
remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, so in that, Srishant was very unhappy because there were 13 players, 13 big name players
Mm.
whose names were sealed in an envelope, which envelope never got opened. And that was
And how do you know about that one? I mean, what if someone said to me, "Look, yeah, how can you make these accusations? How do you know this about this envelope? What would you say?"
because that envelope was literally presented in court. They
Oh,
showed
right.
they showed the envelope and said these are 13 names which we have evidence against to show that they
Mm,
have been involved in match fixing.
mm,
And I think they had a very bad moment where they
mm.
uh, spelled the name out in court and everyone was shocked. Everyone in there
Ah,
was shocked and they were made to sign what is that called? Uh,
like,
non-NDAs. They were made to
yeah,
sign
yeah, non-disclosure forms,
yeah,
aren't
so
they?
they were made to sign NDAs, and the rumor is, and you can look it up
Mm,
as well, that there was a guy called BB Mishra who was
mm,
investigating Dhoni, and he was like, yeah, he was involved. And then right when the CSK franchise came back, he
mm,
released a film, the MS Dhoni, the Untold Story. So that was a PR cleanup of his image, where because he lost Test captaincy at that point,
mm.
and people wonder why did he give up Test captaincy, but that's the exact reason the BCCI were forced to
How
remove
many
him.
people in India think this about
Not
him? Because
many.
he seems to be like a hero.
Yeah, he is a very big hero, and not many people know of this. And he was asked, in a press conference, were you involved in match
Mm,
fixing?
mm.
And he didn't deny it. You can look it up still.
Oh,
MS
really?
Dhoni asked about match fixing, and he says nothing. He's just sitting there with a guilty-ish face, and the
Mm.
reporter is asking him, how does it feel being the Indian Test captain and being uh, having evidence against you of match fixing? Nothing.
So here's the question: if there's that much evidence, why isn't he treated like a pariah? Why is he like still lauded?
I don't understand that because I have shown all that evidence to a lot of
Mm,
Indians myself, and they
yeah.
won't, and they say that okay, Virat Kohli is also involved. I'm like, okay, if Virat Kohli is involved, I'll also accept that he is involved, but there's legitimate evidence against Dhoni, so why are
Yeah.
you not? Why are you still supporting him? And they are like, well, who cares? We support CSK. They don't even care if you show them
What
evidence
about
that.
the pundits? Do they not are they not interested in it or
They might be interested in it, but okay. So I'll get on to this
mm,
point now that
yeah,
uh, you get your throat sliced if you say anything wrong,
yeah.
because you see Bob Woolmer, he was killed. Why? Because he was writing a book exposing the match fixing happening in Pakistan cricket. Hansi
Was
Crony,
it is that how would you know that one? I mean,
because
we know he died, obviously, but he was killed. But how did you know he was writing the book? Where was there like a was this brought out or something in a
yeah,
in
yeah, the Pakistani physio at that time, he revealed
mm,
that Bulmer was talking to him about writing a book
mm,
about match fixing in Pakistan cricket. And if you go through any sort of like the Jamaican
mm,
police investigation,
mm,
I think I don't exactly remember the name, but they said that
mm,
they had no evidence to prove that it was not a murder because it was, according to them, most definitely a
mm,
murder. And a bookie who was really
mm,
upset came out
mm.
to kill him. Same with
Yeah,
Cronier.
because yeah, because for people who don't know that there was a World Cup in the West Indies in 2007, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Where Bob Woolmer died. Yeah,
Yeah,
what I mean, Bob Woolmer was coach when there was match fixing in South Africa.
yeah.
Did he? How much did he know about that? Do you think?
He might have known everything, and that was the same case with Cronier because Cronier was about to give a press conference the next day before
Mm,
he was flying that day in his plane
mm.
about all of the details. He was about to leak everything, and that's why I respect
Really?
him. Yes, I respect him a little bit. And how coincidental
How
is
do you
that?
know this? I mean, I'm just playing devil's advocate here, and like Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
How do you know? Um, that Cronje was going to do that. Was
There's a
was it?
there's an article on the Guardian. You can see that
Mm,
someone from close from his family reported as a source to the Guardian that
mm.
he was feeling really guilty and he was about to say everything out in the public. And
And
some
what about more of the what South African players had done, or other players from other countries?
Yeah, he was about to spill the entire beans of whatever was happening, and someone wanted his mouth shut, and I might sound like a conspiracy
Mm,
theorist, but like it cannot be more coincidental that the same day he flies with a helicopter.
yeah,
He is crashed, and personally, I believe that that was also involved by a bookie. So that's the main thing. Why people don't speak out against it? Two reasons: they have financial
yeah.
incentive not to. People they are paid heavily to shut their mouths. Second thing, they have their lives as incentive to not to because they might be killed.
But I mean, what is very interesting about that South Africa case is how the King Commission didn't probe at all,
Exactly.
if you know what I mean. Because apparently, I think remember Neil Manthorpe saying they sent Gary Kirsten and John T. Rhodes away, not to because they couldn't lie.
Yeah.
And so in a way that they sent the two most honest people away, so they didn't testify in that commission because
Yeah.
they didn't really. It was like a it wasn't a complete whitewash, but it was a. I mean, it wasn't a whitewash or cover up in the sense that they did reveal some things, but there was so much more they could have revealed,
Yeah.
and they didn't.
And you say that, and I'll tell you of a really good thing. There was this guy in the CBI of India who was
Mm, mm,
investigating the 2000s India scandal, match fixing
mm,
scandal, and
yeah,
I don't exactly remember his name, but let's call him X. So
mm,
X investigated all of this and found out all X, and then
mm,
after that, in the 2013 match fixing scandal, there's a book Shantanu Guho Roy and Ed Hawkins. I think both of them have written their own
mm,
versions, and they
mm,
both write how that same person who investigated was
mm,
then caught for being involved in match fixing. So that's the thing.
mm.
They're all linked together in this mess. Even the people who are investigating match fixing have incentive not to investigate it properly.
Well,
So
I mean, this is the funny thing. So if we just take the Cronje example, I think I'm using that because he actually admitted to it, and it's all kind of documented.
yeah,
He's saying, I said to player X, to do this. I set these fields, I opened with this bowler or whatever. Um, and he's saying that, and other players are saying they knew nothing about it. And you're thinking, how did you know nothing about it? I don't know. He's suddenly opening with, not with Ann O'Donnell, with someone else. And you go, why
yeah,
is this? And he's suddenly got like 10 slips or something. He didn't have it, but that's like an example. He suddenly got like 10 slips or something. And the players
yeah,
aren't wondering why this is. And
yeah,
they haven't noticed a conversation between him and two other players in the dressing room where he's like whispering. It's like, it just seems to me beyond a belief that none of the other players had realized it. So it was just him, I don't know, him and Gibbs, or for instance,
yeah,
and that no one else knew about it at all. It's like, I don't know, it's pushing the realms of possibility there, isn't it?
yeah, and there's an ESPN Cricinfo article there which says there was an incident in the South Africa dressing room where,
Yeah.
and this has been confirmed by everyone in the South
Mm,
African team. So Cronje called them up and said,
mm,
"Boys, like it was a dead rubber in the series."
mm.
He said that, "Okay, boys, this is dead rubber. Let's throw this for 50K each. We'll all
Yeah.
get 50K." He said this in front of everyone, and everyone laughed it off. They thought it was a
Yeah.
joke at that point, and
Yeah.
there are reports that he joked about throwing games a lot of times in the dressing room in front of everyone. So
It's an
it
interesting joke, isn't it?
yeah, interesting joke. And
Yeah.
Cronje was like, if I go back to where, like, obviously, like, if I had to
Mm,
point the person who is the chief architect behind this, it's Dawood Ibrahim.
mm,
And as much as I fear for my life after saying his name, but he he is the person who is controlling all of this. And there was literally a gunfight in a hotel where cricketers were staying
mm.
over his gang and another gang. So, it's
But
a
was he
mess
the one
out.
mentioned in the Al Jazeera program?
His name, they didn't mention his name because they also fear their lives, but they said the
Oh,
D company, which is involved in all
uh,
of this.
but
And
is it clear that he's involved in the D company?
he's
Is
the
that well known?
he's the owner. That's why it's called D company. He's the owner.
Oh, okay, that's fine. I mean, you might still get killed, but at least you won't be libeled.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now coming on to Wasim Akram, because if you
Yeah.
read the Justice Qayyum report, it
Mm,
basically says this: we have all the evidence to say that you are a match fixer. But since you are the captain of your country and I like you a bit, I'm not going to label you a match fixer. Now go on and just don't captain your country and don't play a couple of games. Go do a bit of yoga and come back. That was the literal, like, that's how the report was.
Yeah, I mean that report did suggest that he bowled these 40 wides or something against Zimbabwe. I don't know if it was exactly 40 in a
Yeah.
time where they didn't give wides in Test cricket unless it was so ridiculous. And
Yeah.
he's a great bowler, and this is Zimbabwe who were quite a low side in Test cricket, and
Yeah.
all of us and he was bowling all these wides somehow,
Yeah.
and you just think, look, obviously, and unless someone stands there and says, "It is me, I'm match fixed," then
Yeah.
you can't like 100% say, but you have to kind of put two and two together and deduce things, don't you? And
Exactly. And I was thinking this, because even if someone, like, if someone does not say that they have done match fixing,
mm,
you cannot prove that they have done match fixing. Like,
no,
obviously you can correlate with the amount of runs they've
mm,
scored and the sessions, but
mm.
you can never really prove the intent, can you, that they're trying to underperform.
And it's
It's
interesting. Imran Khan used to get his players to swear on the Quran they wouldn't match fix, and that
Yeah.
shows you how kind of how seriously he took it, and how he and the fact he knew very well what was going on in the first place. You wouldn't do that automatically, would you? But he knew it
Yeah.
was an issue,
Imran
and
Khan and Sachin
yeah,
Tendulkar, the two
and
people
to
who
do
I
yeah,
really respect, because they were the only two people in the face of rampant match fixing and all
mm,
corrupt people to stand there as really pure people who who
mm,
weren't involved in all that dirty
yeah,
Benjamin.
they deserve a lot of credit there. And
Yeah,
also, I mean, if you look at the Australian program I was talking about, the documentary, the
yeah,
woman was probing Wasim Akram.
yeah,
And she just wasn't having any of his defense at all. She was almost just like astounded. And he didn't even he seemed like he was laughing as well.
yeah.
He said, "Oh,
Because
that's Pakistan cricket." He said, sometimes we bowl well, sometimes we bowl badly." And he was,
yeah,
and she just was like, "Oh, come on." And it was so funny that I just felt embarrassed as a cricket fan that this must be the only sport where people just accept that as an answer. Oh, even though there's all this evidence against me, that's just Pakistan cricket. Sometimes I bowl well, sometimes we bowl badly. That's just it. Even though Steve Orr just said, yeah, I could tell that game was fixed or whatever, they just didn't. I don't know. It wasn't enough for the ICC for some reason.
yeah, exactly. And that's the problem with everyone in cricket, because the fans, I think, don't even care. They have
Mm,
evidence standing right in front of them
mm.
that cricket is literally a game played puppet. It's a puppet game. But people, no one seems to care, and that's what baffles me, because I
Why
will
are these players allowed to commentate? So, for instance, Mike Waugh, who admitted taking money from a bookie to give a pitch report over a number of years, still
yeah,
commentates in Australia.
yeah,
And Wasim Akram sometimes comes over and commentates for Sky. Michael Atherton's always like really happy to see him, their ex Lancashire colleagues.
yeah.
And there's never any kind of, people go on about the spirit of cricket if someone's run out or something, or
Yeah.
man-cadded. But what about bloody match fixing? They're not. It seems like the match fixers aren't really. I don't know. They're not really kind of ostracized at all, or the
Exactly.
spot fixers or whatever.
Yeah, because they're all involved, right? They're all involved in some capacity. And now coming on to like Kapil Dev, because Kapil
Mm,
Dev and Tahalka tapes, like people, like I'm going to be a really unpopular person, like I am in India
mm,
always, but Kapil Dev, if you see, there's literally all kinds of evidence to prove he was involved in. There was a name in the dressing room,
mm.
Kapil Chacha 25 lakh, which means 25 lakhs Kapil Dev. That was the amount of money he was paid to fix a game. And
But
there's
was
a
it was he fixing or spot fixing? What was
both.
he accused of?
Both.
Both. Okay.
So you can watch a documentary out there, Tahalka tapes.
Mm,
It's about Ravi Shastri, Sunil
mm,
Gavaskar, and all Navjot Singh Sidhu, all these players, Sanjay Manjrekar. All these people agree that match fixing is happening and it's rampant
mm,
on the game of cricket. And they just say it out loud that we can't do anything, and but match fixing is happening. There was a sting operation
mm.
conducted by Manoj Prabhakar, and at the end of the day, Manoj Prabhakar was also found guilty of match fixing. So
But
this is
no, in,
yeah,
in in the documentary I saw, I remember at the time as well, Kapil Dev being accused, and I remember Sunil Gavaskar being accused.
yeah.
Um, I don't remember Shastri as much really. So,
No,
but
Shastri
and then
wasn't accused. No,
he wasn't
Shastri,
accused, no.
no, he was telling that match fixing happens.
Oh, okay, yeah, cool, yeah,
Yeah,
because I didn't think he'd done it. But with Sunil Gavaskar and Kapil Dev, I remember hearing about it at the time. And
Yeah.
then on the documentary I saw, I rewatched, a policeman saying that he thought they were guilty, but they
Yeah.
have both denied doing it, haven't they? Subsequently, they said it wasn't. I
Yeah.
don't know what they what
And and Kapil Dev made a whole show act out of it. So he
he
started
was crying
crying,
when he was
crying
interviewed
in
about
public,
it.
crocodile's
Yeah,
tears. I didn't give a shit about what he said there because I know what he was up to in that moment.
but does everyone in India think that, or
No one in India thinks that. People here still Lord Azharuddin, and he's seen as some sort of god. So,
oh, but
uh,
he was actually found guilty, Azraddin, wasn't
yeah,
he?
and yet people don't care, and I just don't. I don't understand that. Yeah, you just
But
see your heroes be like that.
but Sonal Gavaskar is still commentating on things like the IPL, and he's when India come over, he still commentates on Radio 4. So
Yeah.
how come? So I suppose the question that someone would say is, if they're guilty, why weren't they kind of found guilty in a way that Cronje was, or Malik from Pakistan was,
Yes,
or
yes,
Herschel
yes.
Gibbs, etc.
So I'll answer that because
Mm,
uh,
yeah.
yeah, so he was found guilty because there's a really funny incident. So the Delhi police were
Mm,
recalibrating
mm,
their voice messages which were happening.
mm,
They were just checking, going through them for some sort
mm,
of there was some sort of gang violence happening,
mm,
and in that they overheard Hamsik Rania talking to a Indian bookie about some sort of
mm,
fix, and
mm,
only by that did they get
mm,
onto it, and the Delhi police investigated it, and they found
mm,
out that okay, he's involved in a lot of match fixing,
mm,
and the BCCI tried their best. The BCCI and the Indian government
mm,
tried their best to put it on the sheets. They
mm,
hired the CBI and put their own men in and
mm,
tried to just get Azhar away with the least punishment possible.
mm,
Same with if you had to go through the Srishant case, because people
mm,
wonder how did the Srishant case happen? Was it
mm,
it was made to look like a one-off, but why it
mm,
got exposed to the public was because I think you remember Lalit Modi.
mm.
Yeah,
I
so
remember.
Lalit Modi was a man who had a lot of grudge against N. Srinivasan because he removed
Mm,
him from his own. He was the IPL was the birth child of yes Lalit Modi, but N. Srinivasan removed him, so he had a grudge
mm,
against him. And to
mm,
fulfill that grudge, what he did was he exposed fixing happening in the league by siphoning off some
mm,
money and
mm,
exposing it by himself. So
mm,
so all of these incidents, they look like one off, like they happen
mm,
spring up somewhere, but we
mm,
cannot be fooled by the fact that by thinking that. And even the
mm,
Muhammad Asif and that incident, only because
mm,
Sun TV did that sting
mm,
investigation, that was because that was why that incident came to light.
mm,
And it definitely happens a lot, and people don't notice it because they've got smarter at it. But the
mm,
only reason some get identified is because there's some sort of it gets identified by
mm,
coincidence. No one is looking for identifying match
mm,
fixing. Like in the 2008,
mm,
2007 World Cup, I think the ODI
mm,
World Cup, Mohammad Asif had around 20 phones on him. Who has
mm,
20? And he was changing a phone every day. So why would
mm,
he do that? There was a lot of
mm,
match fixing and everyone was involved. So to answer your question, it's basically the fact that no one is actually looking to find match fixing. It just happens to they just
What about
happen.
these journalists?
Huh?
What about the journalists though? Because I remember watching I think we're listening to a podcast with Jared Kimber, Norman, and David Lloyd on Talk Sport,
Yeah, and
and
Ed
they were talking
Hawkins
about
was there.
fixing. Oh yeah, and they were talking about it, but they wouldn't name anyone. You've named people there that haven't. I mean, for instance, we can all name War, Cronje, Malik because they were proven guilty, but you've named people like Dhoni. Um, but they haven't named anyone. They just said things like, "Well, we all know who it is, but we can't say." So why is it that they can't say?
They can't say because for two reasons, that
Mm,
all of them are involved in cricket broadcasting, and if you say anything about that any names, then you're going to be
mm,
removed. And that's what was happened. The guy who investigated
mm,
Azharuddin was killed
mm,
2 years later
mm.
under unforeseen circumstances. He was so that's the thing, right? They cannot afford to speak anything about against these
But even
things.
people on Talk Sport say who I don't know if they mention I don't know a player that isn't really that big a name, match fixing, they wouldn't be allowed to commentate. So yeah.
Yeah, they wouldn't because that's how that's the length at which they go to protect their thing. And now coming on to D
Mm,
Company and Dawood Ibrahim. Now,
mm,
just prefacing what he was. So he was a Don, who was the biggest gangster of Mumbai, and
mm,
he still controls most of Mumbai and India, and
mm,
the underworld of Mumbai and India. And he found that match fixing was a really it was a white
mm,
collar job for him because there was no
mm,
killing involved. It was a clean
mm,
sort of crime for him. It was not a bad crime for him. So he put all his focus on this. And why I
mm,
want people to take notice, because
mm,
okay, maybe sport is not that relevant, maybe the
mm.
money might go somewhere, but that money which goes from sport is used for terrorism, which happens in all your countries. So the D company uses that money and gives that to all these terrorist outfits. And
What if someone said, where's your evidence for this? Is there any kind of a paper trail, or where do you get this information from?
yeah, you can just look it up. It's public information. You can look it up.
Mm,
The D company literally lists that they have the match fixing as one of the biggest sources of revenue. And what do they give
mm.
it to? They give it to drugs, smuggling, human trafficking, and terrorism. All of that money is, and we are literally financing that by watching cricket. So it's a bit of a messed up situation in that regard.
And do you think everyone that's involved in franchise leagues around the world knows about it?
Definitely,
And
100%.
so, do you think every player and all the kind of the statisticians that work there and physios, they all know what's going on? Or is
Definitely,
it just
one.
some?
No,
Yeah.
everyone knows about it, but there are some definitely there's some good people who don't get involved and try to stay
No,
away
sure.
as much as possible. That is definitely there. Uh, like coming on to the IPL now
Yeah.
I had a really interesting thought, but I don't think this is feasible. But
Mm,
people say that the IPL is completely scripted. It's like the WWE. There's like there might be instances like they're told this game will go this way, and everything
mm,
right from the first game to the final, everything is
mm,
scripted from the
mm.
beginning. So what do you think about that?
I don't. I haven't seen evidence for that one. I don't. It'd be very hard to script the whole game, wouldn't it?
Yeah, by scripting a game they mean that you can do whatever you want, but you want
Mm.
this result.
Okay. Well, I've heard no evidence of it. Has there been kind of any undercover reports about that or anything?
Yeah, there have been undercover reports. Like there was a report in 2009
Mm,
where a group of bookies, like a group of people dressed as
mm,
bookies, went to players, and the players were like, "Yeah, this happens very regularly. Everyone is involved," and they gave them money, and they said that our owners don't even pay us money. We rely on
mm.
match fixing for money.
And I suppose that there's a podcaster. I think it's called like the Caribbean podcast. I
Yeah,
don't know if you've ever seen it. There are these two.
yeah,
They're
yeah. I've seen
British-based
that.
guys. Yeah, with the Caribbean like ancestry.
Yeah,
And they were talking about it, but again, they didn't mention any names either. They just
yeah,
said it goes on, and there's a lot of they were saying that there's a lot of people out there that a lot of players that you like or whatever, and you don't realize that they're all involved in this.
yeah.
But they didn't name anyone like you. You've been the bravest one.
Yeah, well, if something has my fate has something in store for me, I don't care. Uh,
If anyone has any issues with that, just go to you, not me.
Yeah, that's fine. Like he said, I think he said a very good point that if ever, like in 5 years there's going to be an
Mm,
implosion, everything is
yeah.
going to come out, and in that you can expect some really big names, common household names.
Mm,
There's a possibility like the big best batsman in England right now, you can have him involved in that, and it will be a big revelation because you saw like that Al Jazeera documentary. Kohli was
yeah, yeah,
standing next to Anil
yeah,
Munawar, and I would not be
yeah.
surprised if he was involved, honestly, because it's a like you cannot even fault the players at that much because they
Mm,
literally have their families and their own life
mm,
at stake because they can't do
mm.
anything about it.
Yeah, well, will this come out in the end at all? Will anything come out, or not really?
The only way it comes out, and
Mm,
this is why I want America to get involved in this, and I don't
mm.
know why the UK doesn't get involved with this either, because
Yeah,
yeah,
same.
because Indian governments are like this, they don't do anything about it as long as
Yeah,
they are getting money from
yeah,
somewhere, they don't care. But I don't understand why Australia and UK, they just put up with this, and they know that it's happening, but they don't do anything about it, and this is why
I
I
mean,
want.
the ACB covered up the Warren and War pitch report stuff for like a number of years, didn't they?
Yeah,
So
and
they did the opposite, really.
yeah, and what I want is that cricket gets into mainstream America, and when
mm,
it reaches the white American, the white
mm,
middle-aged American, the
mm.
CIA will wonder about what's happening here. And once they get a hold of what's happening, I think that's the only way we can have some sort of fix for cricket. And I don't see that happening anytime soon unless
But what
there's
if
a
what if they start shooting cricketers like they did with JFK? I think that would be a bit going too far.
no, I think they'd fix it
Okay.
unless they have some sort of backhand deal with the fixers. But I think they would be the only possibility of a fix. And now, like, coming on to how you'd fix this, and this
Mm,
is a concrete way of how I'd fix this.
mm,
First of all, like I mentioned earlier, legalize betting in India and
mm,
regulate it, like strictly regulate it.
mm,
And third, and in all of the subcontinent, second of all, create a
mm, mm,
board of people who are
mm,
not related to any
mm,
businessman or any sort of anything. They are
mm,
completely independent. I know that's hard because everyone it's hard to hire independent people, but
mm,
hire a group of independent people who will overlook
mm,
cricket and overlook all forms of cricket everywhere, all franchise
mm,
leagues, and they have to follow by a constitution, make a
mm.
constitution for cricket. And now, like, what do you think about this? Then I'll come on to.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, the only problem is if if match fixing's been going on for this long, and you're suggesting it's going on basically, every game, or 70% of the games or whatever, all the franchises, all the international games. Do you want to even? Do you just want to kind of abolish the game after that? It's so rotten. Um, you'd have to kind of rip the whole thing up and start again, wouldn't you?
Exactly, and that would have to happen. But you're true. But I'll say why this won't happen,
Mm,
and why India would never legalize match fixing. And I think Jared Kimber alluded to this
mm,
too. And this is because the Indian government has connections with the same people who match fix, and
mm,
there are a lot of people like they lobby in the government
mm,
to not legalize match fixing because there's a lot of money involved. So it's never
mm,
going to be made legal because there's a lot of money involved. Literally, there's $200 billion involved. So no one's going to give away $200 billion like that. So I don't see a good future for cricket. And now, like, I people will wonder, I am saying so many things about cricket, and yet I have
mm,
an entire podcast about talking about cricket.
mm,
Why can I still follow cricket? And this is something
mm,
I came on terms with myself because I know cricket is a rigged game. It's 60 to
mm,
70% of it is completely scripted. But my point is, I try to gaslight myself and think that it does not happen, at least till the game. I have it on the back of my mind, but I
mm.
try to gaslight myself and keep my rationale out while I'm watching cricket. It's a form of unwinding, and that is why I do that. And but in all seriousness, cricket is not a serious sport.
Um, yeah, I mean, I wonder how many fans out there know this or think this as well.
I don't think many of them are out there because genuinely, when I showed this to my friend, he was like, "What? Why didn't you
Yeah,
show this to me earlier?" And I'm like, "It's literally out there for you to find."
yeah.
There's a book called "All Cricket Matches Are Fixed." You can
Oh,
see that, and that book is
is that
really good.
does that mention the stuff that you're mentioning? Does it name names and everything? Or
Yeah, yeah, it names everything, and there are a lot of books. If you read all of them, you'll understand that there are a
mm,
lot of incidents where a lot of fishy things are happening. And there was a book called IPL 2023, The Mountain of Match Fixing.
mm.
That that
Yeah.
book.
Do you know who wrote that book?
No, I don't know who wrote that book, but you could look it up. So,
Oh, it
oh,
says here, all cricket matches are fixed by Atul Kumar. Is that right?
yes, yes,
Um, yeah. So I've got that here. I'm just reading about it here.
yeah,
Oh yeah. It says he's an engineer and a postgraduate from University in Madras.
yeah.
Um, wow, yeah. So it said it's an instrumental book in exposing this. Yeah, I'll try and give that a read myself.
Yeah, there are a lot of books. You should look at Cricket Caught Corruption, Bookie
Yeah,
Gambler Fixes Spy, and Game Changers is a really good book on cricket. Not the Game Changers documentary from USA, the Game Changers book here. And there are a lot of books. Like if I had to
mm,
recommend
mm,
whatever I'd want people to watch, obviously the Al Jazeera
mm.
documentary, the Tahalka tapes,
Yes, yeah.
the Justice Qayyum report. Then you should look at all the work Ed Hawkins has done, Shantanu Guho has done, and also just go around and look at some articles. Lalit Modi, the former chief of the BCCI, said cricket is a joke. He said in a do you know Hassan Minaj? He's an American podcaster.
No, I don't know him.
So he was doing a very he is a very famous he does all political commentary in America. So he called Lalit Modi. He lives in America right now, or I think the UK, whichever one. He called him to his podcast and asked, what have you done to cricket? He said that I sold the game, and he literally said that to his face.
Wow,
And he said that I know it's happening, and we can't change that, and I'm sorry for what I've done to cricket.
wow.
Yeah. It's all a bit grim. Like, this is how I take it. I gaslight myself and still am passionate about it. What about you?
Well, I was trying to just think to myself, just things like the Cronje affair, Malik affair, Azruddin, but it's
Yeah.
all been sorted. And I kind of, uh, well, it took, Kapil Dev at his word. Um, I did think it was fishy that there wasn't Akram bowling all those wides,
Yeah.
especially when his colleagues had been done for match fixing too. So
Yeah.
I don't think that one I couldn't really guess that myself with. But I think on the whole, I didn't think it was happening. I never looked into it, and the Al Jazeera one was a real eye opener because it was about very recent times and recent players.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just something that happened in the 90s with Cronje.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think once all this stuff is out there and it's proved, and I think it might almost be the end for cricket in a way as a serious game once it's all
Exactly.
out in the open. If there was
And
a proper commission, like a good version of the King's Commission on all these cricketers, it
yeah.
would be amazing to see. And how much everyone knew and how much the journalists knew and didn't tell us.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's amazing. So I don't know, you read a cricket report and you're following a cricket game, say on the internet, and some guy from Quick Viz will say, "Oh, that's the 13th biscuit that Alistair Cook ate since 2009." But it's completely irrelevant kind of stat. But they won't give us this information that they know about match fixing, which is crucial to the game. And probably some of
Exactly.
the people from CricViz actually work for franchises across the world and
Yeah.
might have seen this or and might have heard things. I mean, if you've heard them, I'm sure someone who works for a franchise has heard this stuff as well. And
Yeah.
so, in a way, we're being treated like kids. That you know, there's something very serious going on. Something we're watching might be bent and we're meant to, get worried about, a stat
Is bent.
or
Is bent.
is bent, yeah. And we're meant to be worried about a stat or Johnny Bairstow being run out or if if there's match fixing going on non-stop, why do people even mention the spirit of cricket um or whether there should be an umpire's call? I mean, all this stuff's completely irrelevant if the games are all bloody fixed, isn't it? I mean,
Exactly.
this is the bigger picture, and I suppose that's why they don't reveal it. I suppose I've answered my own question because there's no point in watching cricket podcasts if it's not legitimate.
Yeah, so like that was my way of coping with it. I was
Mm,
like, okay, fuck it. I'm going to gaslight myself into thinking
mm,
this, like, obviously, like, life also does not matter. So I'm going to
mm,
take cricket as a form of
mm,
winding down and just look at it as it is. So I'd
mm,
advise you and a lot of people who are watching this podcast to take it that way
mm,
as well. And also one more documentary, and this is the
mm,
best one, Inside Edge.
mm.
Inside Edge was what got me into this stuff.
Yeah,
So it's in Hindi, but you can
yeah,
see it in English as well. There's an
yeah,
English version of it. So it's a complete way, like it's a show showing
yeah,
everything that's happened behind the scenes and in the ground, match
yeah.
fixing, how match fixing happens in cricket. And they have simulated the IPL and international games and shown
Mm,
exactly how things happen in match fixing behind the games and drugging, all of that, like taking drugs before a game to
yeah,
enhance your performance, PEDs, and all of that is shown there. And it's a really good two, I think, three part documentary. And not, it's not a
mm,
documentary, it's a web series. They
mm,
claim it to be fictional, but if you see the writer who's written it,
mm,
he says that the entire thing is
mm,
made on hearsay from people who have actually been in cricket. So you should see
mm,
that, and I'll advise other people. And also another thing about MS Dhoni. So he was, people told that he was involved in fixing.
mm,
He got a film out on his own of the MS Dhoni, the Untold
mm,
Story. Then in 2019, after the India New Zealand game where he didn't
mm,
dive, He there was accusations of him not performing well. He joined the
Oh, in
army
that
then.
semi-final.
Yeah, he joined the army then. So,
Mm,
do you see a link that whenever he has been defamed for something, he joins some sort of he does some sort of PR work, joins the army or some sort of film about himself,
mm.
and people think, oh, people here think he's some sort of really good person, and
I suppose what
there
if someone said, if why isn't this proven in the way that Kanye is proven with Dhoni? Are you
that's
make they'd say to you, are you making accusations that you can't back up?
I can back that up, and
Mm,
I can back that up because I'll literally show the evidence why I say
mm,
this, because you can go to a Quora forum and
mm,
there's a CBI report. Not I'm
mm.
not saying this. You can see a CBI
No,
report
no.
where they're in an hotel, and okay, I'll say this now so that people don't tell me anything. Gurunath Mayappan was the guy who was involved in CSK.
Mm,
So both of them were sitting in a hotel, Radisson Blue
mm,
in Chennai, and I think there was one guy called Vikram, a match fixer who came in, and they were in a
mm,
party, and they decided to score only 142 against Rajasthan in a IPL game. The next, it was on the 20th of April 2013, and you can check the score till now. It's
mm.
exactly 142, and Dhoni scored at the exact rate required to get to 142, and they got around 5 crores for that. And there's a entire CBI page about that.
And um, how do you know this is true though? I mean, what convinces you that this is actually a hard evidence?
Because there was a inspector who was working on it.
Mm,
There is a CBI report on this, and if you go through MS Dhoni's background and how there are a lot of other things which I correlated, and a lot of different evidences
mm.
which if you stack them together, they're just too convincing to believe that he's not been involved in any of this.
Like similar to the Akram case, where even though that someone hasn't prosecuted, if you're suggesting that the evidence points towards one thing.
Exactly. And people
Mm,
like there was this argument, and a lot of people made this. Okay, you
mm,
like Kohli so much, but praises Dhoni a lot. Why does
mm,
he praise Dhoni if he knows that involved? And
mm,
my simple answer to that is, if like, why would you go and threaten your life? People will
mm,
not say things against him, and maybe they have a
mm,
good relationship, but definitely
mm,
he does not want to endanger himself.
mm.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, go on.
Well, no, it's just it's sad if all this is true because I never thought that about Dhoni.
Yeah, it
Um,
is true, and I say that with conviction.
because he is a legend of the game, really.
Yeah, he and I'll
Just like
not
was in Akram, and I suppose Cronje was a bit of a legend too.
yeah, and I'll not deny that Dhoni was a really good white ball player,
Yeah.
but as things stand, and he was a corrupt person, and he is still a corrupt person. So, yep. Uh, now,
If anyone's seen this film, Knock Knock with Keanu Reeves, um, there's going to be like a recreation at your house, I think now, isn't there?
yeah,
There's going to be lots
definitely.
of cricketers knocking on your door, saying, "Can
Yeah,
we speak to you?"
yeah. If I die in unforeseen circumstances, please know that I did not.
Don't get on a helicopter. Whatever you
Yeah.
do, don't get on a helicopter.
Yeah, I'll not commit suicide in any case. So just
Okay.
remember that if it's okay, let's leave that. Let's end the topic of match fixing here. And my only suggestion to everyone will be, match fixing does happen. It's very prevalent. It happens in 90% of the games, but
Hmm.
you should not stop watching cricket, because at the end of the day, nothing matters in life. So unwind, watch it for fun, and just leave it in there. And if you have the ability to, try and protest against it, and obviously get the gist of it out in front of the public.
And just to say, I'm someone who's very cautious, very small C conservative, and I didn't even want to talk about this topic, but the evidence shown to me was so compelling that it, you know, obviously some of these players mentioned haven't been convicted, and these are relegations, but there is a lot of strong evidence here, and I think obviously make your own mind up and look at these sources, and if you look at these sources and you think these people are innocent, no problem, but there's a lot of kind of compelling evidence on these issues if you read things like the Kime report, the King's report, watch the Al Jazeera documentary, watch the Australian documentary I watched. Um, and I think for people who are non-cricket people, it looks so obvious. If you're a cricket person, you might be a bit invested in it, and you don't want your heroes to be involved, and you might be in a bit of denial. But I think a non-cricket person looking at it would make an obvious conclusion, would think it was an obvious conclusion.
Yeah, and I have gone through all the seven stages of grief in this. I had denial, acceptance, and everything. And you can see, like, in last year at this time, I was tweeting every single day, like,
Mm,
I want to become a journalist and I want to expose
mm.
everything. And I was like, okay, Billy, don't be a hero. That is coming through. And okay, I don't really need to put my mind into this. I put this podcast out, but I can't really change it. And only if everyone gets together, it can be changed. Okay. So
Mm,
now ending the topic of match fixing, let's come on
mm,
to English white ball cricket.
mm,
Oof. So what do you think? What's the trajectory for the arguably one of the best white ball sides from
mm,
2016 to 2022, which won two World Cups and just were
mm,
phenomenal, the best team in the world in
mm.
like indisputably. What's gone
Yeah.
wrong for them according to you?
Yeah, because they'd won the two World Cup. They'd also got to a T20 final as well, and
Yeah,
also a T20 semi-final, an ICC Trophy semi-final. Um, there's a number of things. I mean, the first thing is there was some that that Strauss gave precedence to the white ball team. He brought in Bayliss mainly for his white ball abilities. He
yeah,
backed Morgan completely, let him have all the players he wanted.
yeah,
Key has been the complete opposite. Key has treated the white ball game really in the secondary as a
yeah,
secondary thought. He's never given Butler his first team. I think he gave him his first team once before in a series against New Zealand before the World Cup. He
yeah,
never prepared for it properly, and since then he hasn't played his first team in the white ball game. And also, so there's that. So there's no priority given. The players pick and choose when they play. So Root and Stokes barely ever play 50 over cricket. They just come in for a World Cup. Whereas under Morgan, everyone was drilled. Everyone was drilled and played every game and played every series, and they were building towards something. They were
yeah,
building a team. Here, it's you come back for a World Cup. It doesn't really work. And secondly, very importantly, we've our 50 over competition was a good one.
yeah.
But it's
The
now a
Royal
reserve
London ODI
competition.
Cup,
Yeah, Royal London Cup and now called, I think, the Metrobank Cup.
Metrobank. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's been destroyed by the hundred. So the hundred's on at the same time. All the players playing the hundred instead. So none of our players, like our good young players, play 50 over cricket. Brooke hardly played any 50 over cricket before he played one day cricket for England. Whereas
Yeah.
someone like Root had played loads, Stokes had played loads, Morgan obviously. So they're just not playing one day cricket anymore. So
Yeah, yeah,
they just don't play 50 over cricket. So they play it as like an extension of T20,
yeah,
and that's where it
exactly.
goes wrong.
Exactly. And this is not a problem just limited to England, but since we are in the
No.
discussion on England here, I think the only because you cannot solve this normally because the
Mm,
calendar is so packed together that you
mm,
cannot have, and I think in the India podcast we had last
mm,
day, the same
mm,
thing I mentioned that there is literally no time for these guys to hone their skills, and
mm,
they can only focus in one format and they can excel in only one format if they want to. That's T20 cricket because that's played every time. But with ODI cricket, the problem is that there is no competition. No one plays
mm,
in domestic ODI cricket. There is no domestic franchise
mm.
ODI cricket. So the only form of ODI cricket you will play is probably World Cups and series before
Yeah,
World Cups. And I don't think that's a sustainable way to play cricket unless you have Virat Kohli. Obviously,
yeah,
but for norm people for cricketers, it's unsustainable, and that's why I think splitting of the formats would be the way to go in this.
definitely. That would be the best way to go. But I think Key. It's a bit funny saying this because you wouldn't. He doesn't strike me as a kind of like an intellectual, but he's being too clever for his own good. I think it seems to be the mood music in the kind of Western countries that 50 over cricket's coming to an end. And so there's no
Yeah.
point playing it anymore. And they keep saying it, kept saying it, Atherton, oh, the World Cup in South Africa will be the last one. It'll be the last ever 50 over World Cup.
No, no,
And you
no.
think, no, but no one said that. And so it's a bit of a guess, and you're not really taking notice of the countries that play it the most. Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka.
No, no,
None
no.
of them have said they're going to stop playing 50 over cricket. So it's
Yeah.
just some commentators in England have just thought it for some reason, and they think because they thought it, it's going to come true. It's very peculiar. There's no sign that 50 over cricket's ending.
The 50 over World Cup is still the biggest event in cricket,
Mm,
so we can't deny that. And yes, bilateral series,
yeah,
50 over bilateral series are the most pointless things that are happening
yeah,
on earth. And
yeah.
and I think I tweeted something out there that the I'd rather kill myself than watch the England West Indies ODI, and that holds true because what was that even like?
Yeah.
That was the most bland cricket I've seen in my life. So yes, there is some sort of substance to saying, oh, bilaterals will die, but ODI World Cups never. Now, like you said, like with
Mm,
England, I think there are a couple of problems
mm,
where the players are paid like they're paid whatever a lot of money, but
mm,
if they're paid to excel in all three formats, but they're only prioritizing two formats or one
mm,
format, then that's not sustainable. And how do you go
mm.
on solving that, say, without splitting the formats? What would be your way of fixing this?
I think the only way is to split the formats myself. I think Billings, Sam Billings, surprisingly, said that
Yeah.
they just shouldn't play bilateral white ball series, just play World Cups and franchise leagues.
Yeah, I agree with
I
that.
wonder why he said that because he just plays with the franchise leagues himself, probably. I mean that seems like the way it's going, and
Yeah.
then you just have a few bilateral games before a World Cup, and that's it, just to get people warmed up. That seems to
Yeah.
be the way it's going.
Yeah, I would rather have the qualifiers, which would serve as
Yeah,
which would serve as the bilaterals of the preparation, and friendlies, a bit of friendly. But I wouldn't have individual bilateral series. So, no, so what I was saying, so you cannot split the
mm,
formats because you do not have the
no,
power to, but you still
yeah.
have to fix English white ball cricket while keeping Test cricket also at some sort of level. But let's ignore
Well,
Test cricket. How do you fix
mm.
this?
Well, I just give more of a priority to it. I'd say that the players have to, if the players can't pick and choose the games, it can't be the case that Stokes comes in and out of retirement like every 4 years or something, and Root doesn't play one day cricket till a World Cup. I'd just say that's not acceptable now. You've got to allow the team to, you've got to allow the team to be built in the way that Morgan did. And obviously, sometimes you can't play everyone you want, but it can't be the case that you're not playing your first team in any bilateral one day series. Um, that's also bad for the fans who pay the same price still. It's not
Yeah,
like it's not coded as a friendly, it's still coded as an ODI.
yeah,
And also they have to make the 50 over tournament a proper tournament again and not a
yeah,
reserve tournament.
yeah,
And if that means playing it in April or something, fine, or
yeah.
playing the 100 in April, moving it about some way. They just got to make sure they do because our young players need to play 50 over cricket. Now, if people like Hussein are right and one day cricket does go extinct, then that's fine. Then don't play it in England. But you should always reflect the formats that are played internationally in your domestic game. So,
Yeah. Let's move the 100 to
mm,
January and then
yeah,
play
move the 100
everything.
to January
Yes.
in Mogadishu, and we could just don't have to watch it, and we can we can just have the the real tournament.
Yeah. So if I'd suggest this idea to you. So remove the 100, keep the blast as it is for T20 cricket,
Yeah,
and you have August and add another month like there is for Metrobank,
mm,
and
yeah,
make it a franchise tournament for everyone to come in
yeah,
and
that's
play,
fine. Yeah,
commercialize
no
it,
problem.
and make
Yeah.
players want to play in it. And then you have fixed it. I think that's how you'd go.
Yeah, and you could actually truncate the blast as well because they play it over a number of months
Yeah.
and almost deliberately to devalue it to make the 100 look better. But you
Yeah.
could just have that in a shorter window, that
Yeah.
the 100 just in May or just in June or July, whenever they want to do it, and
Yeah.
just the 100, just the blast for that month.
Yeah.
And maybe they can shorten the number of games played in it, fine. But you can give these all a proper window, and
Exactly. And
that's possible.
yeah, so if that happened, then you could
Mm,
solve it immediately. But that's the thing.
mm.
Cricket does not have cricket administrators have a
No.
brain size of a peanut, so they'd
Yeah.
never change that.
And they're very venal. The ECB is incredibly venal organization. It just cares about making as much money as possible. It doesn't care about the
Yeah,
game in
but
England. For them, it's just it's like a profit. That's all. It's not. It doesn't matter to them if England win or lose. It seems it just matters the amount of money they get. If India come here next year and win 5-0, but every ticket is sold out, the ECB are happy. It doesn't matter to them about England winning it or not.
yeah, exactly, and that's why cricket is so flawed because here
Mm,
performance is
yeah.
not incentivized, and I think
No.
the only way cricket can be fixed, and going even back to match fixing,
Mm,
if we incentivize performance, where performance pays more than anything else. If you do well,
mm,
it does not matter how big of a player you are, you'll do well. Like in
Mm.
football, if you win the Champions League, you are expected to win a lot of money and you'll do well. I
Yeah,
think cricket needs a bigger prize pool, and winning
yeah,
needs to have more incentive to it,
definitely.
because winning is just like winning is not that important unless you
No,
really want to do it at this point.
no. And also, it's too subjective in a sense that I don't know. England might win a one-day tour, a one-day bilateral series, and they'll say this is great. Then they go and play their reserves in West Indies, and they say, "Well, we were just playing our reserves. It doesn't count." Well, d does it count or doesn't it count? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's still valued as the same thing, like a currency. So you can't just say this one counts and this one doesn't. If it's the same if it's the same bilateral series, it's the same series, the bilateral series. So
Yeah, exactly.
you, you can't just have someone say, "Well, that doesn't count because you didn't have a first team." Well, that's your own fault. You didn't play your first team. You can't just say it doesn't count.
Doesn't count.
Um,
Yeah,
or do, all
that's
reflected
right.
in the price. If it doesn't count, then charge £5 for a ticket, not 150.
Yeah. And I think what these people don't realize is that all of these money which they are getting, like these
Yeah,
people just want to, they get big fat checks for doing these things, but where does
yeah,
that money come from? From people who are watching cricket and
yeah.
everyone, like everyone, people. There was a guy who was telling me that Sky loses money to show cricket for England, and I was like,
Mm.
what do you think a broadcaster of the size of Sky is losing money because of cricket? And he was seriously implying that Sky is subsidizing cricket for England, and that the
And more just out of the goodness of their own heart, just
yeah, and
like they're a philanthropist or something.
yeah, so he was trying to imply that the viewers have no implications, and thus the viewer should not have any say in what's happening, and that's the level of delusion which exists in some places.
That's amazing. You don't get
Yeah,
a private company doing things, for their own good, as like a charity, do you? I mean, that sounds
exactly,
amazing. I'd
exactly.
like to sell that guy something actually.
A bridge will
Yeah, a
sell
bridge. Yeah,
him.
I've got a bridge in London to sell him.
Yeah. uh, come like so. Let's end the England white ball cricket topic now,
Yeah,
and do we discuss the New Zealand England Test series on this podcast, or we'll do it in the next episode?
I think. I mean, we've got a couple of weeks before it starts, haven't we? I think it's the 27th, is it?
Yeah, so I think we'll do it later. Just a tiny bit to reflect on before
Yeah.
ending this podcast. India is not
Mm,
traveling. They have announced that they're not traveling to Pakistan for the Champions Trophy, and
mm,
I'll make my views clear before I let you answer. So
mm,
I think that if safety is guaranteed, India
mm,
should go to Pakistan, and if it
mm,
isn't, they shouldn't go there.
mm,
And what Pakistan should do in this case is not accept the hybrid model and not have
mm,
just forfeit the tournament. And India is not doing the right thing. But again, I understand the fact that, and also this is used as a tool of politicization by the Indian government. Like let's not be oblivious to that fact. But oh, yes, there is, this tour should happen given
mm.
safety is okay. That's my point of view. And if you want to abuse me for that, go on.
Yeah, I was looking at your Twitter today. You're getting a bit of pushback for your comments about the ICC trophy. No?
Yeah.
You, um, so if we don't do a podcast next week, you've probably either been killed by one of the cricket agents involved in match fixing, or some angry India fans because he wanted to go to Pakistan for the ICC trophy. We'll have
Yeah.
to investigate who it was at the end.
Yeah. So what do you think about this? I'm not going to let you go off the hook so easily. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I don't want to get any abuse. No, it, I think they should go if it's proved that it's safe. I think they
Yeah.
should go. I agree with you. Um, and
Yeah.
because I do take on board the fact that it's a bit different. I know England went there just recently, but a lot of Indians will say, well, look, there isn't the same kind of tensions between England and India and Pakistan, and obviously the previous terror attacks. It's quite a sensitive issue. But I think if it is safe, they should go because you don't want countries picking and choosing what tournaments they go to or where they go.
Yeah.
It just
And
sets a dangerous precedent.
yeah, and sport should not be used as a political tool.
No,
That's what.
I don't like politics in sport myself at all.
Yeah, and another thing that people will say that I Russia is not allowed to
Mhm.
compete in the FIFA events, and I'm against that, and I'm also against
Same,
Australia being hypocritical against
same,
Afghanistan. I
same.
I
I don't
am
think Russia should have been banned.
yeah. So that's my thing.
It's also too
I'm
subjective because Russia were banned, Israel weren't. Yeah, how
Exactly.
does that one? Yeah, Israel invades Lebanon, it's not banned. Russia invades Ukraine is banned. So
Yeah, exactly.
it's too subjective. I think to stop the subjectivity, don't ban anyone. Just sport should be about merit. The best team
Exactly.
qualifies and wins it, and you can argue about their politics in a different realm, in the political realm. That's completely fine.
Yeah.
But if a team qualifies, they deserve to be there, and let them, win on their own merits. You don't have to support what their government does.
Yeah, leave politics aside from cricket. Let sport
Yeah.
stay away from politics. And Modi will be very unhappy after hearing that.
Yeah.
But anyways, I think so you won't be hearing from me next week because I might be dead. So if you have any questions, send them over at your prayers wherever you go, whichever church you go to, whichever temple you go to. So send over your questions. I'll see you next Friday or Saturday.